Hey, good morning and good afternoon. It is Sunday, June 28th. Um, it's an extra special. Uh, hey, oh my goodness, who's that already? Hey, y'all. It is my extra special Motivating the Motivator. Hi, Charlie. Sorry. Um, it is my extra special one because today's my birthday. So it's my birthday. It's the big 4-9. So I am in the process of closing out the first half century, moving into the next part of my life. It's also special because my mentor, one of my mentors, but she's my yoga mentor, she's coming on. Thanks, Charlie. So it is my so it's my birthday and I have my mentor on, which is very exciting for me. Simply because she is such a gigantic part of my life, and um, we just she's very special and she's joining us, but she is extremely special because of all that she through. Thank you. First of all these happy birthdays. Thank you so much, everybody. She has helped me through a lot. Not just, wait, she's so beautiful. Hi, hun.
Hello.
Hey. So I'm just letting everybody know how special today is. It's my
Happy birthday.
birthday. But it's my birthday, yes, but I was telling them that I get to speak to one of my mentors.
Ah,
So I
amazing.
am so excited and so thrilled to have Anayra on today. By the way, just going back a little bit for everybody, I'm going to be posting, there are four, my birthday presents. What I want for my birthday this year is for people to come outside of themselves and to donate to organizations you've never heard of before. So I will be having it, it's already in my profile right now. So if you go into my profile, you'll see four organizations for you to donate to: Center for Policing Equity, the Okra Project, which helps Black trans teens, the uh, uh, there's a lot. There's four. Oh my God. It's all about politics and finding political power and helping others and just helping to uplift and empower. So please go into my profile, check those out. Okay. You all set up, Anira?
I am set up.
Drum roll. So let me give my complete setup here. So we'll talk about a gigantic number of things, but just to set everybody else up here, Anayra Calderon, she is, on the base level, she's a beautiful yogi.
Thank you.
But on the other levels, she is an incredible human. She is one of the most selfless people I've ever met. She is encouraging. She is empowering. She's honestly, Renaissance woman, people throw that term around, and I honestly don't feel it belongs to everybody that gets that. She deserves that. So if you want to say Renaissance woman, it's her. Um,
Thank you.
Also, I didn't find too many Black and brown women when I was first starting this whole yoga training journey. And I'm thrilled and honored to have found her, and that one thing I do when I'm looking for people to study under is I look to see if their values and morals and how they present themselves or whatever kind of like match with mine, because I feel if they don't, I can't learn from them. I can't grow. I can't. She, man, I thought we did, and then she went like zoom above everything that I ever thought. So I get to speak to her and I get to share her with the world. Also, the funniest part is every time I mention your name, my friends like, when do we get to meet this Anayra person? Because all I ever do is I'm like, well, Anayra says, Anayra does, Anayra, Anayra.
They can
So,
come to Saudi Arabia to visit.
and we're gonna get right into that. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Anayra. Hi, honey.
Oh,
How are you, sweetie?
I'm well. I'm well. I actually literally just finished putting my apartment together, so I'm very excited.
You moved. You
I
moved?
moved, I moved on Wednesday, So I've been crazy, but I literally just got everything done. So
It's
I
hot,
feel
honey.
settled. Oh, girl, it's 113 today.
Le-
Yesterday was 104, and I was like, oh, it feels cool outside.
You've been there too. Everybody, she is in Saudi Arabia, so she's not just with us. She's not here. She's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You know what? Tell us about Saudi Arabia. Tell us what you're doing out there.
Well, I'm teaching high school, and I'm teaching some yoga on Sundays to people on Zoom, mostly teaching high school and devoting time to me. I'm very blessed to be in a point in my life at the moment where I only work on things I want to work on. So it's kind of like all my projects are passion projects at the moment because
Okay.
the way the universe worked out, I broke my ankle 3 years ago, and I kind of had to leave the yoga world. And I went back to teaching high school, and God, divine intervention, because, with COVID-19, who knows what I would be doing? My primary income relied on travel and yoga. So
Yeah.
two industries that are taking a nosedive at the moment. So, you know, 3 years ago when I broke my ankle, I was wondering why. And now I'm like, oh, this is why. I was meant to be here at this point in time. And I'm very happy to be here. And it's a changing country, which is something I strongly believe in. And
Hmm.
I'm teaching at a girls' school, which is nice. I get to influence students directly again, which is the one thing I missed about teaching, that one-to-one
Right.
contact with students that can go out and do big things. So that's
Hmm.
really nice. And that's what I'm doing here.
I love it. You know, every time I tell people that you're out there, the first thing they do is clutch the pearls.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God, is she okay? I'm like, she wasn't kidnapped, and like she went there on her own. This is what she. So if one of the things I wanted to talk about the power of travel because that goes directly to what I just said. Like I think so many people who are like, oh my God, how could she be there? Is she okay? It's this. And I'm like, I know it's got its issues. However, she's okay. So
Yeah.
can you just can you speak to the power of travel and what it does to open you up and open up your mind? Yeah.
Yeah. For me, travel, as you know, is something very, very important. I think it's important for Americans don't tend to travel. So that's one thing. And then minorities tend to travel even less, right? Like I remember being younger and just wanting to go to places, and my friends wanted to go to Miami. They wanted to go to South Beach. And I'm like, let's go to Mexico. Like I wanted to do different things. And I think the more you travel and the more you learn about culture and people, the more understanding you can be of why people do certain things. And I think a one of the misinterpretations of the other
Yeah.
is not knowing, right? You don't know why someone does something, so it looks crazy, or
Right, right.
you're quick to judge. But I think that the more you travel, the more you get to meet different people from different cultures, and you understand that people are maybe not the stereotypes that you think they were. And even as a minority, and as a woman, as a Latina woman, I had my misconceptions of certain
Right.
people, places, because
Right.
we're products of our parents and we're products of our
Yep.
upbringing. So even if you don't consciously think you're doing something, you might be, because your parents have influenced you and where you grew up has influenced you. So the judgments come in. I was very blessed that I grew up in North Bergen. Well, I was born in Puerto Rico, and transponded to North Bergen when I was in third grade. But North Bergen is a very eclectic town
It sure
where
is.
there was lots of Indians, there was lots of Latinos from all the different countries, you know, not just the Caribbean, but, you know, we had the South Americans. We had a very diverse, we had, you know, Africans, we had people from all over. So I feel very blessed to have grown up in that environment because these people were, we had a lot of Arabs in my class. Like, so I grew up with all different cultures, which I
Right.
know happen all over
It does
America.
not happen a lot.
Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
very blessed in that manner. So from a young age, I already knew there was people from different cultures. You know, it wasn't the, you know, the first time I met an Indian or an Arab wasn't when I went to college. And I know that that's the reality for a lot of Americans. So I feel very blessed. And because I had people from different cultures, it piqued my interest and I wanted to travel. I wanted to learn more. And
Hmm.
that's where my love of travel started. Like,
I love
I
that.
when I was a senior in high school, I worked at Gap Kids in Newport Center
Who didn't
Mall.
work at Gap?
And back then, Newport Center Mall in Jersey City, if anyone, you know, is a Jersey City or North Bergen, Union City, like there was like 5 stores in the whole mall. And Gap Kids was one of them. But I had the pleasure of actually, I was in high school, but I was working with people that were, you know, older than me in their 20s and 30s. So like I went to Mexico with my coworkers and, you know, meanwhile, like my high school friends were going, you know, to Wildwood, but I was working because as soon as I was like 13, actually I faked my working papers when I was
Oh, there you
I
were dishonest.
little, I changed it so I work. And ever since I was old enough to work, I worked and I saved my money so I can travel. So my traveling started fairly young while I was still in high school, and I'm still going. You know, I think I'm at like 60 countries at the moment. I kind
Are
of started,
you? Wait, seriously?
yeah. So yeah, and
I
I
love
just want to
that.
keep experiencing, and this COVID's getting in the way. So I'm like, please open up the airports again, because right now I'm stuck in Saudi Arabia. Like a lot of people are stuck all over the world. But I could think of worse places to be stuck. I look at the news, I look at what's going on back home in America, and
How is that? How do you see how it? How do you? I always wonder about the lenses everywhere else. Every time I travel to another country, I always want to know what lens we're seeing through. So obviously you've got social media and you've got all that stuff and you are still connected to everybody and you can do CNN, blah, 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 blah. But the lens through which everyone in that region or the people that you know in that region, what's the lens that you're looking at home through?
the lens of disappointment and lots of just I feel let down by my country, even though I'm not there. But you know, my parents are there,
Yeah.
and you know, between the handling of COVID-19, watching people really feel entitled, like they can do whatever they want because, you know, they don't have to wear masks or taking away their civil liberties. Like, you know, you think wearing a mask is taking away your civil liberties. Meanwhile, George Floyd had a knee on his neck for 9 minutes, and that's not taking away somebody's civil liberties. Like, you know, a lot of
Meanwhile,
people are really
meanwhile
screwed up.
Brianna, it's like
The
ridiculous.
mentality, there's this like clash going on that you're like, someone thinks not wearing a mask is okay, but you know, killing Breonna Taylor while she was sleeping is fine. It's so, you know, those kinds of things. Like I'm looking from not being there, and then I'm sad because I'm like, I want to go protest. You know, protests are not legal here. So there are no protests going on in Saudi Arabia. But you know, I feel a little helpless being far away.
Yeah.
And you know, that's actually why I started my teaching yoga again on Sundays.
Hmm.
Donation yoga, raising funds for organizations that I think are really putting in the work
Yeah.
and working with the local communities and the national community at, you know, really trying to make some radical changes, and that's what needs to happen in America. A lot of radical change needs to take place, and that's what I
Yeah.
see from being taken out of it. I see just how screwed up we were. I think Americans live in a bubble, right?
Yeah, we do.
Americans only watch the local news, so they don't know what's going on in the rest of the
We
world.
gotta go. We have this bubble is, I've been talking about bubbles, oh my gosh, and not the cute ones, like these bubbles that need to be burst. And when they burst, you can actually smell all the shit in the world. And sometimes you just gotta get a whiff so you can move forward, honestly. Like I've
Yeah,
been talking about that. I'm thankful I've had a couple of platforms where people have interviewed me, but the one thing I keep talking about is that I'm like, get out of the bubble, man.
yeah.
Get out of the bubble.
Turn
It's,
on a different news station. Find
yeah.
out find out what's going on in the Middle East. Find out what's really going on in Asia. Read articles. All these people reposting memes and misinformation
I know.
without even like verifying um, the information that they're spewing is it
Mm,
just shows you how much of a bubble Americans live in. They
yeah.
have no idea what's going on anywhere else. They have no idea. And unfortunately, because they don't have any idea, they think that they're the best and they're better. America used to be number one in education. They are not anymore. And it's been years, so
Really?
yeah. So as an educator,
I
I'm
was gonna
like,
say, so wait, who's number one?
I'm not sure. It might be China or Japan, but it is not America. And
Not us?
we're not number two or number three either. So, just taking a look at that. And, the reason America became number one in education was because back when, I think it was World War II, they
Mm,
really made a big effort to make Americans literate because most Americans were not. And the
mm.
army who started educating people and making people become
Yeah, the
literate
GI Bill really
and
helped.
get better education. And that's why America became number one, because the government invested in America being number one in education. And you want to talk about the effed up stuff that's going on. They've been defunding schools for years. People are upset that some people are calling to defund the police. Schools have been defunded for years and years and years, and
It's been decades.
that's why I left education. It got to the point that we're following models. Everything is about ticking off boxes. Did the teacher do this? Did the teacher do that? Like, how about you let a teacher teach? How about you fund schools and you fund after school programs and you fund the resources that communities need so that people can get an education, and
Right.
that America could be number one again. Because I think when they say like America's number one, it reflects back to that time, that period, that brief period in history where America was number one in education. They are not anymore. They've let
And
that go to the wayside.
mm,
And you know what? It's one thing, you don't feel it right away. Maybe you don't
right.
feel it the
That's
first
true.
decade or the second decade. But 30 years later, 40 years later, you're like, oh my God, these, students are not up to par. They're not on the level, and I just think about the things that I learned when I was in school and having taught in an inner city in Jersey City. I'm like, oh my God, these kids are so far behind. But it's not just Jersey City, and it's not
It's
even just it's not even just in the urban districts. It's nationwide. Schools have been defunded, and if you're not part of the percentage of people that can afford private schools and tutoring and all the extra resources, if schools are being defunded, students are not getting those extra programs, because the first things to go are after school programs and
always,
and the
always.
arts and the things that may have gotten some of these students through and up to standard and up to a level where they can
Mm,
compete with the rest of the world. Forget about competing with America. You need to compete with the rest of the world. And I
right.
think that's A lot of Americans are scared of immigrants coming into the country. You know why? Because in other countries, education is valued and education is a privilege. And I think Americans have lost sight in thinking that education is a privilege, and they don't take it seriously. They don't take it seriously, and unfortunately it shows. And they don't want someone coming to steal their jobs. And they're not stealing their jobs. They're more qualified in a lot of ways because they have better education.
It's really sad that, I mean, granted, I love that you're a yogi and you're doing all these things here, but it's sad because what you're talking about, when it's like, that's why you left education, that's not a rare story. That's not an, oh my gosh, is that it? I've never heard that before. Unfortunately, you hear that from too many. They've either had to shift, they have to get out of their class. There's all these things, and a lot of teachers are fighting an uphill battle, which
Absolutely.
I you talked about what you learned and how you learned. When I was in school, we had after school programs, we had art, we had. That was a while ago. I get it, but it goes to what you were saying. Maybe in a few years you don't feel it, but then another few years and another, and the next thing you know, 3 decades later, because it's been 3 decades, 3 decades since I've been in undergrad or school or something, that it's like, well, here we are. It keeps catching up and it keeps rolling. And that's
Well,
really
look,
sad.
the previous governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, he wanted to take out phys ed from school, like gym. Like Americans are already overweight and dying at alarming rates from heart disease, cholesterol, diabetes, etc. And you think gym is not important? Like you
And
don't
it's
think.
also important to burn off energy too. Like kids cannot be sitting at a desk all the time. They
I know.
have to get out. They gotta run. I just think it's part of the whole. It's funny because it's like when we talk about what wellness is, it's not just doing a couple of exercises. It is literally working on that person as a whole. And part of these things that kids need, which is going to set them up for adulthood and beyond and just living life, part of it is finding ways to let go, finding ways to let off steam, not just sitting at a desk, just learning to be physical, learning to appreciate movement.
Yeah,
And it helps them with focus and concentration.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
I don't think America looks at students as a whole
I
in
wish we
education.
did. Ugh,
And not, and not just students. I mean, a lot of teachers leave teaching because they're mentally burned out. So like
yeah,
take, take care of your teachers. Teachers are underpaid because education is
sure are.
defunded. So if you don't take care of your teachers, you're going to get subpar teachers that don't want to be in the classroom, that don't have your students' best interests at heart, might be
Right.
there just collecting a paycheck. Teachers used to go into education because salaries were good, health benefits were good, and you had summers off, right? And then salaries have declined, or they haven't met the cost value of things.
Yeah,
Health benefits have become not the best benefits. A teacher used to have the best benefits. They used to have state benefits, and state benefits were the best, and they had to contribute very little to it. That was part of your package. It turned out that once they started defunding schools, and I'll use my sister as an example, she also left education. Um, when she started working, she was making X salary. 6 years in, Chris Christie changed.
uh-oh.
And I'm like, let me go plug in. He changed the law, and raises and how much you had to put into your pension and health insurance and all of that changed. And 6 years later, she was making less money than she was on year one, even though she had had raises, because the amount that they were taking out became increasingly larger. So, what kind of job do you work at that 6 years later you're making
You're
less
making
money?
less.
And she was teaching inner city, she was teaching in Jersey City also. And then you wonder, why good teachers are leaving. You're taking away all of the reasons a lot of people went into teaching. You're taking those reasons away. So what's left? And what's left if the system is defunded? And what's left if the community is not behind the teachers and there's no support? It's the teacher, and their mental health suffers, their well-being suffers. And at a certain time, you have to, say to yourself, is it worth it? Do I need to pull out? And for me, I needed to pull out. I had I had a student that sat in my class that brutally murdered someone with a machete at 3 p.m. outside of the school. I had students that wore ankle bracelets in my classroom. We had a precinct in our school.
Yeah.
This is, these kids didn't have other things. The gang was their thing, so we need more support for students at a young age so that when they become older, they have those foundations, they have those things. I was a Girl Scout, I was a Brownie. Like, you had those programs that you put students in. There was the 4-H club, there was different, the YMCA, there's different things. Oh, that was your high school, Dickinson. But
Wow.
These things need to happen. The schools need to be reformed so that we're raising students that are self-aware and and understand history and politics, and not just American history, world history.
World history.
I have no idea. I remember teaching in Jersey City, and I had students that had never been to a beach. You just, you could take a train to the beach. I had students that had never stepped foot in Manhattan, one path train away, $1.50 or $2, whatever it is. Like, that's how in their bubble they were. Like, we need to do more for our youth.
Yeah.
Responsible, knowledgeable adults that are not just posting memes and misinformation because everything they read online is true. And that's
the memes. Oh, the memes. Are we going somewhere else?
Yes, I'm just moving over so I can plug in. I thought I charged myself. I wanted my iPad so that I could have a bigger.
You know what? Speaking of teaching, let's talk about yoga. Let's talk about your yoga teaching, because you don't just teach yoga, you train people to be yogis. Well, you train them to be yoga teachers. They are their own yogis. But you train people to be yoga teachers. So just to back it up a little bit, I took Anayra's class. That's how I met her. We took it on the, we were in Hoboken or Jersey City?
Hoboken
on the pier. And then we had lovely conversation at night. I still think about that conversation, like, wow, how much has changed since that, huh?
Right, yeah.
Right. But from there it was like, oh, she's doing a retreat, not a retreat. You were doing a training on the business of retreats. And I said, oh, I'd love to go. And yeah, because I was already doing retreats, and I was like, but I'm like doing them, I'm having fun, but I'm like coming home with like not only no money, but I was stressed out. So I was like, I gotta find a better way to do this. And you're like, hey, here's my thing. So I, at the last second, paid for that. Absolutely. I wrote you, was like, I'm gonna do it. You're like, oh damn, I didn't even know you're gonna do it. Like tomorrow's the last day, like 2 hours from now is the last time you can actually do it. And that was Morocco. I went to do this in Morocco at the beginning of 2018. And that's our journey started before then, but that's where I got to see how you train people, how you do things like that. And it was just, I've been hooked on you ever since.
Thank you.
Some people are hooked on phonics. I'm hooked on Anayra. But yes, you hear her speaking. So yes, she's already a teacher, and she doesn't treat us like children, but she's very strict. And she's definitely a teacher, teacher, teacher. So here we are in another country where everyone's like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. She's like, this is what we're doing. But she's so loving in her approach. So you are loving in your approach, but you definitely are passionate about this. You're definitely passionate about this. So I know you've been in yoga for what, 20 years now? Has it been, or is it more?
Almost 20 years. I started in 2002, I got my certification. So 18 years.
Wow. And
Hmm.
now here you are.
That's
So,
correct.
and I know you don't really teach a lot anymore because
Mhm.
you do your Sundays, which, yeah, I slept in this morning. I slept and I walked this morning.
Each day, I was organizing my apartment.
Oh, okay, good. So I didn't miss anything. Um,
No.
but talk about your journey to become, your journey to become a teacher. This is, I think, too many, too many times in this industry, you have, I'll just say it, you got a lot of fly by nights. You got a lot of fly by nighters. You got a lot of people who saw a really beautiful pose and everyone's like, oh, I want to learn how to do that. Um, it's great, but not understanding that the asana is only one of the limbs of yoga. And I love the fact that you don't, we won't go into don'ts. I love the fact that you do teach in regards to all eight limbs,
Mhm.
because I believe in it that way as well. Hence why I was like, yes, this woman is awesome. So can you talk about just how you approach teaching, how you approach the training, just how you approach this segment of wellness?
Mhm. One thing we didn't talk about was my education.
Yeah.
My bachelor's degree is in English, literature, and I double majored. So my second bachelor's degree is in religious studies. So I studied religion. So I approached yoga for the first time from a religious perspective. Um, I went to Seton Hall University, so I went to a Catholic university. And one of the hardest classes to get into that you can take your senior year is called Zen and Yoga. And most people love that class because you did yoga and you
Yeah.
talked about Zen. So I got into the class and I was lucky. My professor was Claire Diab. And at the time, I knew nothing about anything. I just wanted to be in the class that, was worth 3 credits and I just got to sit around and do yoga. And Claire Diab turned out to be an amazing instructor. Not that she was like the best asana instructor, but Claire Diab worked with Deepak Chopra. So she used to travel the country with Deepak Chopra, and he would do the philosophy stuff, and she would teach yoga with him. And she worked with him when he had the Chopra Center in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who was my first introduction to yoga. And when I came out of my senior year of university, I was like, I kind of like this yoga thing. And that was the only yoga I had ever done. Like, I had never taken a class. I started getting yoga journal. I subscribed, which I know there's a lot of controversy, but it was the only magazine that
It
you
was the
could
only one
get,
out there at the time. Yeah.
only resource. So I bought the 3 or 4 books that I could find that were about yoga, and I went to a yoga class at my gym. And I was very blessed to come in contact with Felice Berman, who was a Jivamukti instructor. And it was like at the beginning of Jivamukti, because this was like in 1990, no, 2000. It was in
Mm-hmm.
2000 or 99 or 2000. And she was one of their like first graduates from teacher training. And she was intense. Like, I was like, ooh, this lady's like, she was talking about I'm celibate and like in a class, and I'm like, I don't need to know that. And at this, I'm like 19 years old, and I'm like, celibate. And then she's like, I'm vegan, and I was like, this teacher's weird, but like, yoga did something to me. She went
Yeah,
to a
it does
dark,
do something.
and it was what I needed.
Yeah.
And sight unseen, I opened up Yoga Journal, and there was an advertisement for a yoga teacher training. and it was $5,000. It was in New Mexico by the Yoga Institute, one of the oldest schools of yoga
Yeah.
actually in the US. And I went up to a friend that I knew that had money, and I was like, lend me $5,000. And he said, for what? And I was like, I want to do this yoga teacher training, so I need to borrow this money. And he said yes. And I went to New Mexico and I got certified to teach yoga. And I didn't
Nice.
want to teach, I just wanted to learn more yoga. Like, I
Right.
want to do stuff. And I came back and I taught a little, but then I came back and I started my master's degree and I started teaching high school. And yoga kind of fell into my lap. A friend of mine that taught Pilates said, hey, I just got a job at a spa and they're looking for a yoga teacher that can teach Pilates too. And they paid for me to go do my yoga Pilates training with Jonathan Erla in Manhattan.
I love it.
And then I started teaching yoga Pilates. I wasn't even teaching yoga. I was teaching yoga and Pilates. And that's how I kind of started. But then I started teaching high school. And I started teaching yoga after school in our funded after school program.
Yeah.
So, which was
Katie just logged in.
opportunity. I got to teach yoga, and I got to teach yoga to inner city high school kids, mostly Black, mostly Latino, and a few Egyptians thrown in there. And it was
Mm.
mostly boys too that would come to my class, which you don't usually get more men than women. And I remember having a student tell me, "Hi, Katie
Hi,
Riley."
Katie.
I tell me that it was the first time he relaxed in his life.
Wow.
And that
Wow.
hit me so hard because I'm like, you're 13, you're 14. What do you mean this is the first time you relaxed in your life? And it
Wow.
kind of like, it it hit me that a lot of the people that I needed to reach were people like him, people that were inner city that could probably never afford a $25 yoga class and um and benefit from it. Like, who more can benefit from it than someone who's living this crazy life that they need yoga.
Yeah.
So it really changed the direction, and I was teaching yoga, I was teaching at the spa, in what town was that? Cranford, so I was like in suburbia teaching at this spa, and all these women would come to the spa and they'd get mani pedis, and then they would do a yoga Pilates class. And, there was never any fulfillment. I like teaching. I'm a teacher by trade, so
Right.
I love to teach. But it wasn't fulfilling my heart. And when I started teaching yoga at the high school, that's when
That's when it clicked.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to do more of this. And, I started doing more yoga at the high school level. And I also started teaching in Hoboken, which was kind of like the means to where I wanted to get, right? So I
Yep.
taught in, a very wealthy city, and I taught wealthy people. And I took that as an opportunity to
Hmm.
have those wealthy people fund the things that I wanted, my
Yep.
passion projects. So,
Right.
okay, you have money. Let's put your money to work. You really want to do this yoga thing? Open up your wallet. Open up your wallet and provide it to somebody else. Pay it forward. I always talk.
Hmm.
If you've never
You
seen
talk
the
about that a lot. I know.
movie, it's so impactful. But
Yes.
the concept of, if you have, offer it to someone, pay it forward, and without the expectation that something might come back to you. The guy that paid for my yoga teacher training paid it forward. He loaned me that money. He never asked, but I paid it back, but he just said okay, and he literally wrote me a check. I used to be a martial artist, so I knew this guy from martial arts. We practiced kung fu together. So before I got to yoga, I was a martial artist.
Oh,
um,
what else? Oh my gosh. See, Renaissance woman. Told
I
you.
was disciplined martial artist. I
Yeah.
was national ranked. I used to fight. Like I loved it. Like I like structure. I like discipline, and because of this guy, his name is Jesus Tosado. I was able to become a yoga teacher, and I feel like
Peace.
that was my dharma. That was my job, to become a yoga
Mm-hmm.
teacher and to provide yoga to inner city students and minorities, and also to be a face, not like the normal yoga face that you see of the blonde, skinny, blue-eyed yoga chick. I know because I've had students come up to me after class in
Yeah.
Jersey City and Hoboken where I
Yep.
taught, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're the first
Yep.
minority. You're the first Latina that I've ever seen in a yoga class." That was a highly promoted teacher, right? Because there
Yeah.
are minorities teaching yoga, but there are a lot of minorities teaching yoga at prominent studios with prominent time slots, with
Right.
getting paid a wage. Because I tell you, you need to know your worth. Because when I
Yes.
started getting
Yes.
into business, I asked people, "What do you make? What do you make? What do you make?" And then I made sure that I was making comparable, and
Right.
got to a point that I was making more. I was making more than a lot of people. And, I think part of it is I ask the questions, and if I know I'm packing your studio and I'm bringing in students and I'm getting your word out,
You need to
I want to
pay
be,
me what I'm worth.
I need to be compensated.
Right.
I don't work for free. And the only time I work for free are for those people that cannot afford it. And
Right.
I work for free to get shit for the people that can't afford it. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
So now I teach free yoga on Sundays from Saudi Arabia, on a 7-hour time difference,
Yes, it
so that
is.
people can donate money so that I can still fund the projects and help in the inner city. Even when I'm not in the country, I'm still have a pulse, and I'm tapped into my local community, even though I may not be there. But
Right.
when I worked in Jersey City, I lived in Jersey City. I, shopped in Jersey City. I was part of my community. And, I think a lot of people go into teaching and then they go live in the suburbs, and then they drive their little BMWs to school or whatever. And because, the pay is better in the inner city. But at the end of the day, they put their stuff in their car and they go back to the suburbs, and they forget about, where their students are coming from and what kinds of things their students are dealing with.
Right.
So for me to give back to my local community is one of the most important things that yoga has ever allowed me to do.
Right.
And then I started teacher training because I was like, well, let me teach people. And my last teacher training that I ran, like a full 200-hour, was a scholarship training. People paid
Right.
$500 and they got a yoga teacher training that could cost anywhere between 3 to
Thousands.
5 to 6 to 8 to $10,000.
Yeah.
And my ultimate goal is I want 100% free yoga teacher training
Yep.
where I can train more minorities and more people that wouldn't have the access to be able to take that money and spend it on a training, not even knowing if they're going to get a return. So, that's my dream, baby. And, as we're moving more online, I also think that that totally free yoga teacher training, it's coming, and it's coming soon.
It
Because
is coming
I,
soon.
I don't
We're gonna build
I
up this
teach,
whole thing so that you can be funded. We need you
yeah,
to be
and
funded.
I don't teach yoga for my living anymore.
Right.
So I can give it away for free. I have my
Right.
yoga school. I can give anybody a certification for free. I don't need to, especially someone that can't afford to do a yoga teacher training and it's really in their calling, or someone that didn't even know what yoga was until they took a class and they're like, oh my God, this is
I need to
wonderful.
do this for me. Yeah. It is so
So,
important also because I am big on representation. I mean, it is a really big deal because you're right. You'll be in front of a room and then afterwards somebody's going to pull you over and be like, it is so good to see you. up front. Thank you for being a representation. And I feel more open now to doing this. And sometimes it does take that for somebody to be able to let go and understand this is for them too. That's a
Yeah,
very big deal.
my closest friends right now, Maureen, which you know,
Hey,
was
Maureen. I love Maureen. That's my baby too.
she was one of those students. I taught. I was blessed to teach at a studio in Jersey City Heights, and it was called Yoga in the Heights. And
Mhm.
and we had a very diverse community because Jersey City is diverse. Like I had people from all different
Yeah.
ethnicities. Maureen's Colombian, Latina woman, strong, hardworking woman. And when I taught class, I was subbing a class, I think, or it was my first class that I was teaching there. She was like, I went and I stalked you and I read your bio and I saw your piece on the Today Show. And the following week was like, and I'm gonna do your teacher training. Maureen had just started taking yoga, like 2 or 3 classes or
Yeah.
whatever, and I'm gonna do your training. And I was like, okay. And a year later, she signed up for teacher training, and it was because she saw a Latina at the front of the room, and she had found yoga and she resonated with yoga. And then I walk in, and I'm this Latina teaching yoga and traveling and doing stuff, and she's like,
Mhm.
oh my god, I can do this too. And
Right.
she's it. So, stories like that are so fulfilling to me because she did her training and she's, traveled through yoga, and she was going to have
Mhm.
her first retreat. Unfortunately, COVID
Yes.
kind of put that in the dust for now. But, knowing that the influence that I can have, and then I can have either also through my students, instilling that pay it forward and, do that for the people that you can. I could train 30 people, and those 30 people then train or influence, 30 people themselves. And like the ripple effect is just
It's
ginormous.
tremendous.
That's, they call it the butterfly
The
effect.
butterfly effect. Yeah.
Butterfly can flap its wings on one end of the world and can cause a tsunami at the other end of the world. So, and that's what I want to do. That's what I want to instill in yoga. I want that whatever message people are getting from me, from my students, which is usually about community, paying it
Yes.
forward,
Yes.
leading leading by example, and putting in the work, not just the lip service, but actually putting it into action. And if everyone that I can reach can then reach 1 or 2 people, and then those people can reach more, that's my dharma. That is what
Yeah.
I believe in, and that's what I want to happen.
And that's what you instill as you're teaching anyway.
Hmm.
You make sure that it's like, no, we're not just here to do a pose, you guys. We're here to learn and 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 open ourselves up. I
Hmm.
love that part, the open yourselves up thing. Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, I really miss you.
Oh,
I know, I
I
know
miss so much.
we get to see you here and on Zoom, and after class we all stick our faces in there and we're like, hi, Anayra, all of that is very sweet. But I do miss you. But it's funny because I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of you. Um, you really are, I won't say fearless because sometimes fear kind of propels as well. You override fear and you let fear be a catalyst if it ever is there. That you truly keep your eyes forward. And that you truly allow, like, what's the experience? What's about to happen? Let's enjoy this experience. Let's see what's gonna come out of that. And I have to tell you, I will forever, forever be indebted to you for all the things that were already here for me. But sometimes it just takes somebody to just come along and be like, look, I'm gonna just help you unscrew the top on that jar of the emotions and the all this stuff that you've got in you. You're the one who kind of takes the top off and lets everything that's already there just come out.
I love that. And it really is like
Yeah.
I truly believe I'm someone that sees potential,
Yep. You
and like
do.
I can see somebody and I'm like, you should be doing blah blah blah, and
Yes,
they
you
probably think
do.
I'm crazy. And, some people probably think I'm crazy, and my students, but my friends also, and I'll think of ideas and I'm like, this is what you should do, and they're like, well, why don't you do it? I'm like, it's not for me. You should be
Yeah.
doing this. Like
And
I
it
can see.
seems random, but it's not.
Yeah, and I'm
It's
like,
not.
oh no, this is something that this person should do, or this is where you should put your focus. And I think it's part of being a teacher. My mom's a teacher, my aunt's a teacher, my sister was a teacher, I'm a teacher. My brother's a teacher. We come from a
Yes.
teaching family, and I think part of teaching is pedagogy, which is how you teach, and understanding that everybody learns a different way. So there's different ways to learn, and there's different ways to teach. And an effective
Mhm.
teacher can see and find what way, and what your learning language is, and really kind of hone in that on that, so that the person can grow. And some of my students have surpassed me to the point that and I've never felt there's teachers that don't ever want their students to surpass them, or to do more than them, or to be more successful. For me, that's success. If you are my student and you're doing big things, I am so proud and I'm so happy. And it's like if I was doing those things, so like,
Yeah.
why watching you book your retreats, and build that community, and do the stuff that you came to a training to learn from me, and knowing that you were able to take my knowledge and build upon it and create your own thing. It's because you're not doing the same exact thing I'm doing, you're doing something else, but you took a little bit of the seeds I gave you, and now you've grown into this beautiful plant and this beautiful flower from what it was meant for you to do. So that to me is very fulfilling, because I know now you're bringing that knowledge to how many other people, and you
Right.
are going to
Yeah.
spread knowledge to more people. So just it's the gift that keeps on giving. For me,
Yeah, it
teaching,
is.
I I can never, like years later, I'm seeing the benefits of my teaching. Like recently I did a fundraising class for a kid that was a high school student of mine, who's now an ICU nurse in Bayonne Hospital. And, I'm like, oh my God, this kid sat in my class his junior year in high school, and he's an ICU nurse working with COVID patients, and, doing big things, an Egyptian immigrant from Jersey City. So I'm like, whoa. And, and now he travels, and he
I
said to
love
me,
it.
he's like, you inspired me to become a traveler and to go to places and see things. And that to me, that's the best gift I could ever
It sure
get.
is. Yeah.
Because we don't always get the thanks. Teaching is a slightly of a
It's a
thank
thankless job.
job, but
Yeah.
anytime I see someone's success, I know that I might have played a small role in it, and
Right.
that's all
Right.
I don't need the person to, thank me directly or whatever, but, just me watching someone succeed, is fulfilling for me. It's one of the most fulfilling things ever.
I love that. I love you.
I love you.
I love it. And that is so true. You're right. You are, but you're usually right on a lot of different levels anyway. When are you coming back? So wait, can we do a retreat to Saudi Arabia?
We could, but it's we're all stuck here.
I mean,
Um,
well, later. I mean, how long are you gonna, you got one more year there, right?
At least, yeah, at least. I have one more teaching year on my current contract. I don't see a reason for me to leave. I really like my life here.
I love
Um,
that. That's true. You do like it.
I do
You can
like my
always
life.
do
The one thing that I would like a little bit better is to teach more yoga.
Yeah.
And now that things are going online, I can teach more yoga. Um,
Hmm.
So there's space for that. There's space for me to grow. One of the things that I think has made me a good teacher is that I'm continuously learning and growing
Yeah.
myself. Like, I think my
Yes.
training never ends. And since we've
Mm-hmm.
been on lockdown, I've done 3 trainings.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
did meridian therapy training. I did my animal flow training, and I just did a
Yes.
TMS training. So I, my dream job is to be a full-time student forever, for the rest of my life. And being here facilitates that for me. So, living in
Wow.
Saudi allows me to pursue only the things that I feel passionate about. And, not everyone can say that. So I
No.
know I'm very truly blessed. I know the universe had a plan for me. Coming back to education when I did, like when I left teaching, I got hand tattoos. Like, I never thought I'd set foot in a classroom. I have makeup on these and wear a glove when I teach, because I never thought I'd go back into a classroom. And
Right.
something last summer told me to do it, and I was like, well, let me see if I can get a job overseas. And I was supposed to be in Azerbaijan, and the job
Yes.
fell through. And I really wanted to go back to Azerbaijan because I ran a yoga teacher training, so I knew I could do yoga and teach high school. And that fell through, and I ended up here. And I believe that happened for a reason also. And with COVID, I've been able to, grow my personal practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I still get to teach my students back in the US. And
Yeah.
I've accumulated a few students in other places. Like, I have this girl from Kenya that takes my class. I have, someone from the Maldives. I have a group of people in the Maldives, not even just
That's
one,
right.
but
Katie and the divers.
the divers and the local ladies to take
Yes.
class with.
I
So,
love them.
I'm actually having a slightly wider reach at this
Yeah.
point. So I think everything happens for a reason. And, I'm very happy to be here in Saudi Arabia teaching high school and being able to still be in touch because the internet is wonderful.
Yeah, it actually really is.
It's
Yeah. I know everyone's like, oh, social media, it's terrible, but it's terrible and it's good. And you don't have to go on social media. You can just go onto the internet. Just throw on some Google Meet or Google Duo or something like that and just speak. We're running out of time, but I have to tell you, I am so thankful to you for coming on this today.
grateful that you asked me on your birthday nonetheless. So happy birthday. Hold up, look at what I got.
Oh, wait, what you got? Oh, I love the plant back there. What is that?
Oh my
Your
God.
plant's beautiful.
Girl, let me show you that plant because I'm going to tell you a little secret. I literally started chatting with a guy on Tinder. And,
Oh,
and he sent me this plant. Look how
oh,
beautiful this
girl,
tree is.
how gorgeous
It's
is that?
beautiful.
Is
I've
this
never
the
met
root?
him in
I mean, is it going like
Yes,
this?
hold up. Yes, that is the tree
Oh,
trunk.
wow. That's a
He's
real
molded.
plant?
Yes, look at the
Damn.
dirt. It's the most
Girl,
beautiful
what
thing
kind of
ever.
conversations did y'all have?
Well, you know what? I swiped on him, and then this will tell you, he is not my type, but he listed his one of his favorite cities as Hoboken, New Jersey, and I'm like, Hoboken, New Jersey, what? And it turns out he went to college in New Jersey in my town. So
Get out.
we just talked as friends. It was nothing, because I was like, hey, I just swiped on you because you listed Hoboken. And he sent me that beautiful plant. I received it just a couple of hours ago. But this is what I was going to get because, you usually have a little something. I can't talk about.
Oh, shoot, we've got 10 seconds left. So cheers.
I can't talk about this, but I'm gonna
We
have a
got
cheer.
10 seconds. 9,
I
8,
love
Cheers. I love you so much. Happy birthday to me, and I love you.
I love you. Thank you for having me on.
Cheers.
I love you.
Love you, baby. Thank you.